Alright, so today's presentation is going to be by me, Luis Torres, and my good friend Evan St. John. We decided to do the Hack Your Own Database challenging optional project. We thought it was a lot cooler, and we felt that there was more of a learning experience by doing something more hands-on. Okay, we had a few different injection options as far as getting an injection into our website. So a few options were SQL Map, Mole, SQL Ninja, BBQ SQL, and White Widow. BBQ SQL was said to be like a silent type of injector. It was highly praised, and it did have a lot of use, and a lot of people recommended it. And we were gonna go with BBQ SQL and SQL Map, but there were some complications in getting everything started. We couldn't figure out how to start BBQ SQL on our Kali Linux distribution. So we ended up choosing SQL Map and the Mole. And the Mole was supposed to be something really easy, so we decided to go with it. But it was actually difficult to use, since it crashed often without proper error handling. We gave it the URL, we gave it a needle, and then we gave it a schematic, and it ran half the time, and the other half it just crashed. And yeah, it didn't give us any kind of errors. It just close the program and that was it. The other times it would actually give us information, but it was usually kind of lackluster compared to SQL Map, which was really great and really easy to use. I mean, through some practice and some research, right? We typed in a URL with a few switches and the rest was automated. It gave us tables, it gave us database information, it even gave us passwords and usernames and everything. And I see why this one is so highly praised. When we were looking up different types of SQL injectors, this one was the one that received the most amount of attention and was recommended by everybody. And it also comes installed with Kali Linux. Because it was easy to use, if we ever wanted to do any kind of penetration testing, like in the industry, let's say if I was like at a job or something, then I would definitely use this over any of the other options. We also use a third program called Hashcat. So it paired nicely with SQL Map, and that's because SQL Map provided a hashed password whenever when we retrieved information from the database, such as the user's passwords, right? When you download Kali Linux, Hashcat is one of the apps that comes installed. And the way Hashcat works is that it uses a file called rocku.txt, which contains over 14 million unique passwords from a website leak in 2009. So because we have the hashed password from the SQL map, or the rocku file doesn't store any hashes, it just stores in plain text passwords. So the way Hashcat works then is that it puts every single one of those passwords through a hashed function, and it depends on the switches that we pass it in. In our case was SQL 4.1 hash, something like that, I don't remember exactly. And so it would compute every single password, put it into that function, and then it returns out a hash function, and then it compare it to the function that we gave it originally from the website. And then once it finds a match, it returns that plain text password, and that's essentially our password. Whereas the brute force method, it goes through every single combination of letters up until a certain number that we give it, and it also guesses each hash for it too, or it goes through the hashed function, and then it compares it to the hash that we gave it. That's how we were able to retrieve the password for the website, which gave us like the database password. So we got control of everything.
To start hacking our database server, we created a simple PHP file that queries one of our databases and put it on our website. We then opened SQL Map on Kali Linux to run some commands on this new insecure web page. As you can see in these pictures below, the commands that we used were very simple to use to be able to inject into the server and retrieve information. Our first command on the left allowed us to look at any of the tables in all of our databases and retrieve any information that we are looking for. And then the second command that we used on the right allowed us to retrieve the password hashes for all of the administrative users on the database server. Once we retrieved and cracked the root password, we decided to open phpMyAdmin, which is running on the web server. From there, we were able to enter this information and gain access to phpMyAdmin with no issues. With this access, we were able to look at any table in the database and make any changes that we wanted, such as changing the administrative usernames and passwords, or changing the amount that we owe in one of our sales tables. To conclude this presentation, we will go over some tips and tricks to try and minimize future SQL injections. Our first tip would be to enforce all users to use long and unique passwords to make it harder to crack their password if someone were able to get a hold of their password hashes. And then on our end, we would need to properly salt and hash these user passwords to ensure that their personal information is not sitting out in the open for hackers to take. Another useful tip would be to avoid using queries that are easily injectable, like the one that we used on our demonstration PHP page. Our final tip is to add extra security to the PHPMyAdmin page to make it harder for someone to directly access the database and manipulate the information inside of it. After implementing these changes, we were no longer able to hack our database using SQLmap. Thank you for watching. Make sure to like and subscribe for more great content.